Hello everybody out there on YouTube, it is I, James, once again, and here I am showing you one of the locomotives that I got at the train show. In a total, I got 5 engines. Yes, 5 working locomotives. There's a 6th engine that I did get, but it doesn't really work. But still, this was one of the ones that I thought I would do first for a video. This is a Lionel 8602 locomotive. Now you could get these engines in 3 different variants. You could get them as a 040, a 240, or a 242, for anyone who wants to know. And some of these did have bi-directional switching, like this one. It has an E unit, but it doesn't have a thing where it can just buzz, stand still, buzz, stand still, buzz, stand still. It just goes straight forward and backwards. There is no stopping point in between it. But what makes this engine special is its tender. Now I know what you're thinking. This is just a regular Lionel oil top tender. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but this was Lionel's first attempt at adding sound into their locomotives. What was it? This is what's called a Lionel chuffing tender, or chugger tender, if you will. How does it work? Pretty simple. Underneath it, there's this big rolling wheel, which has, I put duct tape on it, so now that it gives it a little bit more grip, but it had some vinyl tape on it. And there's a bunch of metal beads inside. A lot of people say they're just a bunch of pinto beans, but they're actually metal beads in there, or plastic ones if you've got the later versions. But essentially, that wheel touches the 3rd rail on the track and it spins. And as it does, it sloshes these little beads around. And it makes a chugging noise like this. Now, this is a very clever and very stupid approach to making sound inside of a locomotive for 2 reasons. It's very ingenious when you think about it because of how simple it is, but Marx originally made a sound of power tender, which functions almost off of a similar principle, albeit instead of it being a bunch of beans inside of a little round canister that gets shooken around, the tender had a special wheel which had a blank spot on it, and it was made of metal, and it was hooked up to a speaker, and it would play this very rich white noise, and it would stop every so often as it went along the rails, creating a chugging effect. Now, Lionel wanted to make something that was cheaper than that, and so that they could sell a lot more of them. This was their first attempt. I have another locomotive that shows their second attempt at this. But anyway, the reason why this is so stupid, though, is because once you get up to high speeds, you don't hear the chugging anymore. Essentially, the velocity of the beans is no longer being rumbled around. They're literally just stuck to one end as the centrifugal force drives them that way. So once you hit a certain speed, instead of them hearing ch-ch-ch-ch, it's just nothing. It's only when you're going at mild or slow speeds that you actually hear the chugging effect. Not to mention, because these are plastic, they rattle a lot more. If this was a die-cast steel tender, the sound would actually come out very richly, but because this is plastic, it has a tendency to muffle its own noise, which kind of impedes the sound quality. But also, one other thing, I really do like these smaller Lionel engines for the simple fact that, they're not supposed to represent a real locomotive. They're just kind of made cheaply, and they're sold cheaply, and they've got rich detail where they need to have them, but they're not expensive, and they're not super duper fragile either. These things are pretty durable, albeit mine had a crack in its cow catcher, but I don't really mind that too much. That doesn't really annoy me a lot. It might annoy some people, but hey, to each their own, I suppose. But anyway, we're going to run this engine with some cars behind it, and hopefully we'll have some fun with that. So yeah, sorry if my camera isn't focusing. It's been acting weird all day. So right here I've got some cars, and I'm going to couple the engine up to it. That's another thing. On certain curves, like these very tight radius curves, the wheel has a tendency to drift off to one side, and it won't, and the third rail won't catch it. So it'll skip on a chuff or two at a time. But if you got it going at a good speed, that can usually be remedied. So let's go. So as you can see, that is my little review on the Lionel chugging tender. The next engine I'll review will probably be the one that comes after this one. It's the Sound of Power tender that Lionel made. So yeah, I'll see you guys later, and yeah, goodbye.